Good morning and welcome to day 2 of gridXdays, our first in-house conference that brings together thought leaders and industry experts to discuss the future of energy. We had a fantastic start to the conference yesterday with some really interesting topics and really great speakers, and I won't bore you too much, but I'll just say this: follow our LinkedIn to find out when we put the recordings online and when you can rewatch them in case you missed them. We have a jam-packed day today. We've got sessions from 9 a.m. until 1:30 p.m. and then we'll have a quick lunch break, followed by sessions again from 2:15 and finishing up at 5:45 p.m. Once again, if you find anything interesting, feel free to share it with your friends. Obviously, the link is gridX.ai/x. So yesterday we focused more on climate change and the responsibility of the energy industry to make significant change. Today we're looking more at the solutions to accelerate the energy transition and the conditions or tools that we need to put them into practice. Our first session this morning is looking at how we can move to a decentralized systems and the challenges associated with this. So we'll be hearing 2 presentations, followed by a 30-minute discussion with 2 other experts, all within this overarching topic of decentralization. To explain the topic in a bit more detail, we have a video.
The traditional energy value chain, following a linear progression from generation to transmission and distribution, is no longer sufficient in dealing with the complexity of modern energy systems. Large fossil fuel-based power stations that could supply energy to entire regions emerged under the grow and build strategy of the late 20th century, which drove the near universal access to electric power in much of the world. Today, however, the industry faces pressure to reassess business models to accommodate numerous transformations. First and foremost, the energy sector must drastically reduce its carbon footprint, as energy is responsible for around 3/4 of global carbon emissions. Switching to renewable energy and furthering electrification are crucial to reducing the energy sector's carbon emissions. Renewable energy must be generated from where the source is most plentiful, and using energy closer to where it is generated lowers transportation costs and emissions. The uptick in rooftop solar exemplifies the benefits of increased control and cost-effectiveness through locally sourced power. On top of this, the rise of smart grid technologies is enabling the movement of power and information in multiple directions, and encouraging new participants and business models. Government policy is shifting in a bid to meet climate change goals, while also balancing economic and job growth, thus encouraging further changes in the industry. Distributed energy resources such as consumer-owned renewable generation, plug-in electric vehicles, and energy storage are extending the value chain to include assets operated closer to the end user. Finally, consumers are seeking more control over their energy usage to conserve energy, save money, and reduce their environmental impact, leading to a rise in consumers that also produce energy, or prosumers. All of this results in the rise of microgrids, virtual power plants, market access for prosumers, and a general tendency towards smart, decentralized energy. While centralized systems will remain valuable for balancing energy flows across larger geographical areas, modern energy technology will allow us to combine the benefits of centralized and decentralized systems to increase efficiency, flexibility, reliability, and sustainability.
Kicking off the discussion today, we have Jörg Gäbler, who has 15 years of experience in the German-American business culture and was appointed Principal Advisor of the Indo-German Energy Program in March 2016. Prior to this, he was the Managing Director of the US division of Wagner Solar for 6 years. And at GIZ India, Jörg now heads the grid integration and solar division, supporting the Indian government in reaching the 40 gigawatt solar target by 2022. Thank you so much for joining me, Jörg.
Hello, Greta. Good to be here.
Great.
Thank you for the welcome words.
Thank you. Jörg will now be presenting on this project at GIZ India. Take it away, Jörg.
Thank you. I will try to share my screen. Greta, what do you think?
Yep.
Is it visible? So yeah, then I will. Then I will start. And please, if I do too long or speak too slow or too fast, just please interrupt. It's quite a few slides, but a lot of pictures. So thank you very much for the opportunity. I'm talking about India today as a very promising country in terms of grid integration of renewable energy, and especially the solarization targets and goals of this impressive country and the impressive government behind it. I have one slide with two graphs on India per se. One is illustrating the demand development for electricity, which if you come from Europe or from other countries, maybe even the US, this massive demand of 6 to 7% increase per year in electricity demand is impressive. And it is speaking, if you also look at the sectors, for two things. Number one, India is moving from a developed nation into an emerging nation, and number two, India has a very young population, and this population is growing into an urbanization. So they move this young group of people moving into the cities, and the cities are growing, and India is able to afford more electricity appliances, and mostly driven by ACs. This is the graph on the left. On the right-hand side, this is why the German government is so interested in helping the Indian government to reach its impressive targets. Greta mentioned 40 gigawatt, which is part of the 175 gigawatt, which is the renewable energy target by 2022, of which 100 is solar, of which 40 currently is the so-called rooftop solar target, where GIZ is mostly active in. But since of last year, we have a new target by 2030, 450 gigawatt have to be added. And 300 of this, roughly, there is no roadmap yet, is estimated supposed to come from solar, which is again not sufficient. And if you look at the graph beneath, this is the reason why we are in India to reduce the amount of coal power plants being added, and also to increase the plants being retired. So there is a positive trend if you look at the green bar, and there is a negative trend for coal. GIZ is quite big in India with 350 people. My team, we have 15 people. We deal with energy, we deal with solar, we deal with solar rooftop with this portfolio in front of you. Details are listed in each. The colorization here indicates where the funding comes from with different ministries. So we have the Ministry of International Cooperation and the Ministry of Environment, the green. The environmental ministry is supporting us with money for studies, grid integration studies. So how is India going to be able to fit these massive amounts of renewables into the distribution grids, not so much into the transmission grids? There is a different program for that. And the red blocks are all BMZ programs, roughly now 17 million, mostly for solar rooftop and solar innovations in the country. And for today's event, I picked a small little case study, which indicates these decentralization efforts of the Indian government to, let's say, generate renewable energy, solar electricity, where it's being utilized, mainly in the cities, so in the urban area. So I will introduce a pilot GIZ did over now 4 or 5 years. It's a little, should I say, it's a little storybook here now, which I'm going to tell because this development, I guess, it was only possible in India because of the conditions we have found there. So there's a ministry behind this. They mandated us to tackle certain challenges, which is part one of my presentation. Here are the challenges we had to tackle. So we had to find business models not only for residences adapting into solar and solar rooftop, but also the so-called discoms. This term I will use quite often. Discoms stand for distribution companies. The German international term would be a DSO or Stadtwerke. So here in India, we have 1.3 billion people, a little bit more, but only 80 discoms operating the distribution grids. So they have a lot of power, they have a lot of manpower, they have a lot of responsibility to keep these grids full of electricity to avoid power outages, etc. So then India has, as of today, still because of this old grid or old network, but yet growing demand for electricity, power outages. The big major hubs still see 1 hour, 2 hour a day. Other regions, more rural regions, see even half a day of power cuts. India also very unique, is a country where you find UPS systems, meaning because of the power cuts, so hybrid diesel gensets or now battery storage, they call them UPS, uninterrupted power supplies, are found in every household, in every building, to make sure that there is an uninterrupted power supply. India has not the hurricanes, but they have the typhoons, 180, 200 kilometers an hour wind speeds sometimes go through the cities. India has a big problem with quality when it comes to make in India or made in India. The solar systems are not as sustained as we wish. And then, of course, business models for discoms and business models for the users. So can a system be sold under what it's called a RESCO mode and not only the CapEx mode? So we addressed that with a system we call PV Port, which we developed as part of a combination between solar components, panels, inverters, and also electrical storage, lithium ion and lead acid. The idea here, when you see this configuration, is a system behind the meter, meaning there is no grid connection, it's only grid synchronized, because the system uses a Schuko plug, 3-pin plug in India, to just go into any outlet and feed instead of removing electricity from behind. We did a lot of studies on the grid itself, what is going to happen with several thousands, like this is an example for the city of Delhi, with, 22 million people. We picked out a certain feeder, a certain grid proportion, and looked at the different demands or the demand curves. Here you see them, and we added a certain amount of solar systems in the size of 2 kilowatt, and then the battery sizes, so to store away electricity which is not needed at demands. And here, when you see the curves, in the what we call springtime, or then in the summertime, and all the ACs come on in the springtime, you see this big peak here in the morning, 8 o'clock. That has to do with the showers, because India showers with electricity, so geysers. And then the need for cold showers is more than the need for hot showers, so it dips a little bit. But here, when you see the noon times, these are the ACs, and then the big dip on the right-hand side is the AC in the evening. So with battery, we could shave the peaks, and this was very encouraging. So we continued. and developed a system in Germany. Usually we outsource this kind of engineering work to German experts. Here in Darmstadt, Energy Nautics, they came up with the first prototype. The picture on the bottom right shows you a table where all the components, the different batteries are stored inside, because we wanted to have a portable system which can just be standalone on any rooftop. Keep in mind, India has only flat roofs because we don't have snow in most of the regions. So it's all concrete, very rigid. So load is not a problem. So this system was then launched. Here on the left-hand side, you see the power minister back then. On the right-hand side, the German ambassador inaugurating. So a lot of press publicity. We handed it over to the ministry and to the Fraunhofer of India, called NICE, National Institute of Solar Energy. Everybody was very impressed. Then we tendered in India. We wanted to localize it. So we tried to find several companies trying to fulfill our technical specifications and come up with a branded version of PV Port made in India, which you see here. However, we faced a lot of problems in terms of safety, quality. There aren't any Indian inverters or inverter brands which could sustain these fluctuating grids. The weight was a big problem. The system itself was already 300 kg. So we went back to the drawing board in 2018. And we looked at load first. So why did the system had to be so heavy? You see two yellow numbers here. If you have a standardized 15-degree solar system with a slanted panel array, the dead load, meaning just to hold the system down just on the floor when you incur storms, hurricanes, tornadoes, typhoons, was here 1.5 tons, very, very heavy. So we kind of changed it to what the Germans designed very well, an east-west orientation. Here it looks almost like an airplane now. And all of a sudden, the load to hold the system down was reduced to 500 kg. Then we continued. We looked at the electronics. We looked at benches. We designed benches which have two functions. Number one, to keep all the components inside, and the benches are filled with water to cool all the components down. India has an operating temperature of solar around 60 degrees because it's always hot and always dusty. So then the system, the way you see it here, was designed 2.6 meters in width, 2.2 meters in length, or vice versa. East-west design. Could have been assembled in 2 to 3 hours, and we could also introduce a special made cleaning system because India has a huge problem with dust. 2-3 days without attending the panels, all rooftop is fully dusted. It's Sahara dust. We call it soiling, and reduces the production of these panels by together with the heat by 50%. A big problem. So here we could just clean. A few pictures of systems are being utilized. We are already in the commercialization phase. Chancellor Merkel came together with our Minister for Agriculture, Frau Klöckner. So she also was very excited over it. Called it an energy pavilion for Indian homes. So she wanted to visit a home. Then around the system, and this is most important here, we designed also an intelligent IoT-based infrastructure. The system is completely centralized with the Indian government, and it can be ordered centralized. Components are standardized. Installers are identified and trained, and it's only one portal. We call it the PV portal, homepv.com, homepv.in, and the entire system is being processed. Every system is being registered in this portal, so we have a sense of how much electricity is in the batteries, how much is consumed during the day for direct usage. So we know it all because it's all interconnected. Even Bollywood became interested and started to do a little movie, called it Asan Hai. We gave the idea for the German word of Kinderleicht. So very simple. And then it was broadcasted and we got a lot of attention. and then moved into phase 4 or part 4 of my presentation today, upscaling and cost reduction. India, as I said, it has a very unique constellation of things. So they are currently training Surya Mitras. It's a Hindi word for Surya is the sun, Surya Namaskar for whoever does yoga. And Surya Mitras are the installers of solar. 100,000 of them are being trained as we speak. 61,000 exist. And they became exclusive to PV Port. We all training centers received this PV Port system, and we are training Surya Mitras on them. They are part of our PV Port ecosystem, the portal, and once somebody orders one, automatically a trained Surya Mitra is being assigned for the installation. Discoms are doing what we call demand aggregation. Discoms have a strong interest to fulfill their renewable energy targets, driven by the Indian government, which is amazing how much pressure is being excited top down. Keep in mind, Discoms, distribution companies, DSOs, Stadtwerke in India, all government run. There's no a few private companies. Tata is there, but the rest is all government entities. There's usually no interest in solarizing. Here, the Discoms have a strong interest because they can either sell or lease or do a RESCO model for these PV ports and move them. And the PV port in India, because it became so much attention, has a subsidy scheme. This is the gray bar here on the left-hand side. The 40% subsidies are given to the system. So whoever buys it, the subsidy is being removed, and then there's only the residual value to be paid. Yet we are still, with 5 models, quite high in prices. So from like 1,500 euros up to 4,000 euros roughly. This is where we are, depending upon how the system is being equipped. Yeah, now we're moving into the new phase because Prime Minister Modi said we have 29 states and every state should have a solar city. They call it also Modi City. We moved into a new stage here where we have off-grid, similar to like the charging infrastructure in Germany with electromobility. Here we have mobile power stations, PV port stations off-grid, and we allow with a model pay as you go or power as you go to buy electricity via app from any system anywhere. It's a wonderful business model for cities driven to increase their share of renewables.